We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Marisol. Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. So good to see your beautiful faces. So we begin this Sunday as we do every Sunday, and that is with a welcome to the sanctuary. Welcome to the Zoom Awakening Together Sanctuary. And we will be playing the Awakening Together song by Diva Pramal and Mitten while we greet one another in the chat. But that song always just feels like a prayer. So I just wanted to first say that I'd like to share our purpose with you, the purpose of awakening together. And in case you are ever curious in your own time and you feel like you are curious about the purpose or the core values, I cannot share screen while another's sharing screen. I am just going to show you where to find our purpose and core values. So this is my desktop. Here we go. So if you go to our website and you go to About on the menu bar, and you go to Our Spirituality, you'll see a menu item that says Our Purpose and Core Values. And not only will you find our purpose and core values, as you scroll down, you'll see our purpose in the middle of the page and our core values. There's all these really beautiful links that lead you to other readings. It's a great place to just spend some time contemplating how these fit for you in your own life. And so that felt alive to share. All right. So what is Awakening Together's purpose? We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. With an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and rest in its embrace. And I am going to share the core value in the description after we go to announcements. So all right. So let's see, where are we? All right. So I shared our purpose for today. And I wanted to share the core value that was given to me for this particular homily. Just so you know, the name of this gathering this week is called Permission Slip. For those of you who've ever been on any sort of I got to improve myself and make myself better, you've probably heard this concept, permission slip. Give yourself a permission slip. One of the places that I was introduced to this concept of permission slip was when I was studying How to Dare Greatly with Brene Brown. And the point at that time for the permission slip was, for me at least, it felt like to feel a little less guilty about doing things wrong. With the premise that eventually I might get it right. But something has really shifted for me with this concept of a permission slip. And this fundamental shift is really bringing about questions. What if I gave myself full permission to just watch rejection as it happens? Especially as it's happening, to not blame myself for rejection happening. What if I only watch as judgment happens? Right, wrong, true, false. What if I just watch? What if I'm only watching and I'm just letting all of that be? Can I give myself permission to be exactly as I am? Not different, not a better version of Rhoda, not a better version of anything, not a what I think an enlightened person might be like, no dream, exactly as I am. So this is the permission slip I'm asking us all to contemplate today. And with that said, the core value for today is core value number 2. We realize everyone is equal and no one's been given spiritual intuition that is an authority over the spiritual intuition of others. We live this value by listening to each other, respecting each other, and allowing each one to be where they are, exactly where they are. So we'll begin this morning with an opening song. And perhaps you'll hear this song the way that I am hearing it these days. I happen to have the great opportunity to be in a small mentoring sangha, training for these new mentoring sanghas that we are getting ready to offer here at Awakening Together. And our practice this week has been to wait for the emptiness to speak through us, to wait, to stay with the emptiness. And this next song feels very much like a prayer for me. I am hoping that it will feel that way for you too. A prayer to the universe, a prayer to God, a prayer to life. The name of the song is I Will Wait, and it is by Mumford and Sons. So it makes me just want to cheer. I will wait. So perhaps you'll join me in a prayer. I will bow my head. I will kneel down. And I will wait. I trust that this unseen, unbidden, unknown force speaks through and as all of us. I give myself permission to stop believing that I am alone, to stop believing the lies that come in through the mind, and to wait for you to move us, knowing that we are looking from you, through you, and at you, as you. And so it is. All right. So that leads us to the reading for today, which is basically a framework for the permission slip. After listening to Jacqueline's talk last week, Joan Tollifson is not someone I've spent a lot of time with. I seem to remember Jacqueline was sharing from one of Joan's books in the sanctuary for a little while. I could be wrong, could have been someone else's books, but that's what mine tells me. And after hearing the reading from last week, which just was so resonant, I was guided to check out her blogs, and lo and behold, there was this one. It is titled, "The Freedom to Be As You Are, No Way to Get It Wrong." So this is a blog, which is by Joan Tollifson, and our dear Mary Dugan has agreed to read this blog for us. So Mary, I pass it to you.
Thank you, Rhoda. Good morning, everyone. So the freedom to be as you are, no way to get it wrong. As I've shared before, my mother said more than once in the last year that she was alive. It's so freeing to realize that nothing really matters. My mother was a very big-hearted woman who loved animals, visited sick friends and relatives, even in her 90s in the dead of winter in Chicago, and cared deeply about the injustices and suffering in the world. She did not say this nihilistically or cynically. She said it with relief, as if an immense burden had dropped. At Peter Brown's final Zoom before he died, the Zoom where he said goodbye, he reiterated very emphatically what he'd said many times before. It doesn't matter what you do. It does not matter what you do. That sounds outrageous because, of course, in everyday life, things do seem to matter, whether we're rich or poor, healthy or ill, whether we're a child sex trafficker or someone rescuing animals and planting gardens. These things matter in terms of both what our own experiences will be and how we will affect others and the world. Being hideously tortured in a dungeon is undeniably a very different experience from drinking margaritas in the garden with the love of your life. So what on earth did Peter mean by this? What did my mother mean? I'd say it's about not taking our conceptual maps and narratives seriously and not mistaking them for the living actuality. Thought automatically and choicelessly divides unbroken wholeness into imaginary categories like subject and object, inside and outside, cause and effect, here and there, good and bad, enlightened and deluded, success and failure. We imagine a fractured world in which one thing causes another thing, but all the things are imaginary. They only exist conceptually. Thought poses as me, the thinker of my thoughts, the maker of my choices, and then takes what happens personally, my mistakes, my success. We judge ourselves and others, often very harshly, and think that we and everyone else and the world could and should be different from how we are. This is all very painful. But while reality is infinitely varied and ever-changing in appearance, it is seamless and inseparable, and it never departs from here and now. And while experiences can have many different textures and flavors, the common factor in every different experience is the sheer presence of it. Peter often called it the radiance. Different experiences are like different waves in a singular ocean. You can't extract a wave from the ocean. All the waves are a movement of the whole. No wave can go off in the wrong direction, and no human can either. You can't have the light without the dark. The light turns into the dark, and the dark turns into the light. In some unfathomable way, everything is included. It all goes together. It might be compared to a dream in which every part is equally nothing other than the dreaming consciousness. Furthermore, we don't get to decide our fate, or the fate of the world, or the universe. By fate, I simply mean what happens in this ever-present, bottomless moment here now. This moment cannot be other than exactly how it is, and we're not something separate from or other than this instantaneous presence that is as it is. Our individual lack of control can certainly seem like bad news, and most humans cling to the illusion of personal free will. It's a powerful illusion, and we certainly seem to make choices. But when we look very carefully, we find no me at the helm. Our next thought, our next urge, our next desire, our next experience, our next emotion, our next carefully considered move, our next action all emerge unbidden. thought, posing as me, takes credit or blame before or after the fact. When this lack of control is deeply realized, it puts an end to guilt and blame and the endless suffering that comes from judging what is and trying to fix ourselves and save the world. We may still be moved to go into a recovery program, see a therapist, or demonstrate for social justice, but it will be clear that this action emerges unbidden and that the results of it are not in our hands. For me, the most liberating realization has been that nothing can be other than how it is, that everything is one undivided and indivisible whole that can never be grasped, pinned down, or pulled apart, and that each of us is a unique and unrepeatable movement of the whole. This is from Daryl Bailey in a recent email to me. I feel that the most any of us can offer to society is acceptance of ourselves and of each other, just as the ordinary expressions that we have to be. This isn't easy. Even when we see clearly that we're all expressions of a great mystery and have to be what the mystery expresses. I think it's so valuable that in a world filled with judgment, there are those who are offering this permission to others to be who they are, just as they are, and to value their own unique participation in life. I feel that you are fortunate to be part of that with your own work in the same way that I feel fortunate to be part of it with my own. Daryl Bailey. And this is from Peter Brown's excellent book, This That Is, from a chapter called Radiant Presence, Doing, Seeing, Dancing Itself. There's only one thing, which is the radiance. The radiance is all of it. We have a problem with nomenclature. We have too much of it. We have thousands of words in the dictionary, and there's only one thing present here, and so they all refer to it. Take any word and ask, does this refer to the radiance? The answer is yes. You're always dancing with radiance. Worship or some emotional, devotional engagement is one flavor of dancing with the energy of presence. Reading or going into some kind of mental world or mental application is another way of dancing with the energy, dancing with the radiance. Cooking is another way. Body movement, such as doing Tai Chi, or exercising, or making love, or anything whatsoever that you do is nothing other than dancing with the energy that its radiant presence is. That radiant presence is. It is all radiant presence dancing with itself. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you do. Ultimately, it's all the same. Everything you do is the radiance dancing with itself. When you see that, it doesn't matter what you do. But since it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you don't do either. So you're just totally free. There's only one thing here. There's only one action. There's only one activity. All action is this one activity, which is the radiance dancing with itself. Peter Brown. John Aston commented recently that paradoxically, it seems like it makes all the difference in the world to recognize that it makes no difference. How true. We might fear that realizing that we have no control and that it doesn't matter what we do would free us all up to be serial killers. It can sound like a very dangerous and threatening idea, as if the social order would completely collapse if this were widely realized. It flies in the face of everything we've been told all our lives. But actually, there's no way we can be a serial killer unless that is our fate. Most of us couldn't be serial killers even if we tried. We really can't do anything other than exactly what life moves us to do in each moment. If that were widely realized, it would eliminate a great deal of the violence and conflict that comes from the opposite assumptions, the violence of blame and revenge, the self-hatred that consumes so many humans, the guilt and regret, the self-righteous certainty about how everything should be. This realization would give us compassion for ourselves and everyone else. It would free us to be at peace with being exactly as we are in each moment. That doesn't mean we couldn't recognize so-called mistakes and be moved to correct them. But such actions would happen in a much different way, without the guilt, blame, and regret, without taking of it personally as my mistake, without imagining it all means something about me, such as I'm a good-for-nothing failure, or I'm so much better than all of you, or any of that. All of that would disappear. What a relief. And of course, we can also say that everything matters. Everything is the holy reality, the divine expression, the unfathomable what is. For Zen teacher and psychoanalyst Barry Magid, Zen is not about detaching from life, purifying oneself, or being some kind of unchanging awareness impervious to the vulnerability and messiness of life. He speaks of Zen as moment-to-moment reverence and awe, and the kind of attention that treats ordinary things as extraordinary and worthy of that kind of attention. Instead of trying to fix ourselves or transcend our humanity, Barry invites us to be just as we are in this moment, finding the absolute in the relative, the wholeness in the particular, and the perfection in the seemingly imperfect. These are the kinds of pointings that have been deeply liberating for me, and this is the essential message that I endeavor to convey in my own work. I often quote others whose work resonates with me because sometimes we can hear something from one person that we can't hear from someone else because each one puts it slightly differently. I also quote others because I see us as something akin to jazz musicians playing together, each a unique voice creating one whole song. And it's good to remember that it's all a playful dance and not some deadly serious endeavor as we so often imagine it to be. When singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen went to India to meet Ramesh Bhaskar, Ramesh apparently said to Leonard, "The whole business of seeking is taken far too seriously. That is the ridiculous thing about it. There's nothing serious about it because there's no seeker. And who is serious about it? The seeker." Or as Ramesh said elsewhere, who cares? That caretaker is a phantom, which is why Karl Renz often spoke of liberation as carelessness and seemed to treat the whole spiritual endeavor as a huge joke. It's another way of saying nothing matters. There's truly nowhere to go and nothing to get. This really is all there is. We hear this and don't believe it, but even that disbelief is just another meaningless waving of the ocean. Truly, nothing is lacking and nothing different or better needs to happen. Thank you. Rhoda, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. That was gorgeous. Gosh, Joan really has a way with words, and thank you for just putting your heart into reading that.
My pleasure.
So I will wait. A few weeks ago, Reverend Kelly Barber spoke about the way in which the mind hijacks things. And I noticed as I contemplated this reading this week, how many times mind would try to hijack this particular teaching. And the way the hijacking would appear here would be, to read certain paragraphs and be like, wait, that cannot possibly be true. And a literal sense of fear would come up, like, it almost felt like trying to hold on to a wall that was covered in grease. Just would feel that scary, like I'm about to slip into a pit. And the ego does that. It hijacks things. What I found so interesting about noticing that, what I find so interesting about noticing it, even in this moment, is that that too is perfect. Apparently, that was exactly the experience that is to be had. Feel like I'm slipping down a slope filled with oil. Yep, that's what's happening. And so apparently, that is what is to happen. So, what is it that I really honestly and truly want to give myself permission for? What is it that each of us really honestly and truly want to give ourselves permission for? To know, to trust, to have absolute, undeniable, unshakable confidence in. Regina defined something called, which she called spiritual confidence. And I learned about this in the mentoring course. And she called spiritual confidence trust in your own ability to realize and follow inner spiritual wisdom and or to engage in spiritual practice well. What I notice is that the ego loves to hijack confidence. It loves to hijack confidence. It loves to kind of throw in the idea that you could possibly get it wrong, that this can't be it. It must be what Mary's doing or what Anne's doing or what Marisol's doing or what Meg's doing, but it certainly can't be what you're doing. The ego hijacks it. So can I give myself to permission to just even see that? If I don't even call it confidence anymore, can I just trust? This is exactly what is here to be experienced right now. Why? Because it is being experienced. It is what is happening. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's not true. It's not false. It just is. So if I can absolutely trust that there's no way to get it wrong, the only question I have is what am I being moved to? You know, later in this reading, from Peter Brown's book, he says, you're always dancing with radiance. Worship or some emotional, devotional engagement is one flavor of dancing with the energy of radiance. Reading or going into some kind of mental world or mental application is another way of dancing with the energy, dancing with the radiance. Cooking is another way. So if everything is actually God, radiance, universe, life, just expressing, just dancing with itself, then suddenly I can see what it was that Roger Castillo tried so gently to point me back to so many years ago when I asked the question, so if none of it matters, then why am I doing any of this? What does it matter? And it doesn't. But it does matter to an ego mind that wants to hijack it. The ego mind says it must matter. It must matter that my spiritual practice looks exactly like this. It must matter. But the truth is, if we pause and we just watch, we can see that life is happening. There's an idea that I'm doing it and that I'm doing it right or I'm doing it wrong. And, the judgments come in and this is true and that's false and this is the way to be and that's not the way to be. No, I can't be a serial killer. God forbid. I tell you what, when I read that paragraph about being a serial killer or a child sex trafficker, everything in me went, wait, what? I want to argue with Joan. I wanted to argue with Joan. But then I sat and I just watched. Can I even create a thought? Like a thought comes in and it labels what happens. But do I actually create the thoughts? And the longer I sit and watch, the more I realize I'm not doing any of it. So what if the permission slip is to wait? To actually trust that this radiance, this divine inner guidance is always here. And the only permission slip I need is to wait. Wait. See what happens. Give permission to let us be shown. Let us see it. Let us know it in our own direct experience. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm very good at studying the teachers and saying, okay, let me see if I can find it now. Here, let me go look. Oh, let me try that practice. Hey, what if I meditate in specifically this way? What if I follow that teacher? And all of that, what my sense was from listening to Roger and, these years later of actually going through the practice is that apparently that is what is happening here. That's what radiance wants here. There isn't a me who went out and did it. This is just the way that the radiance is expressing through Rhoda, through Marisol, through Yolanda, through Shauna, through everyone who's here. Just expressing. And whatever I'm called to, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. So it feels like what Roger was trying to say was, it doesn't matter. Just trust it. Just wait for the emptiness to move you, for the emptiness to move you to speak. Just wait. Joan wrote that thought automatically and choicelessly divides unbroken wholeness into imaginary categories like subject and object, inside and outside, cause and effect, here and there, good and bad, enlightened and deluded, success and failure. We imagine a fractured world in which one thing causes another. But all the things are imaginary. They only exist conceptually. So maybe you'll try this with me as you look out through your eyes right now at whatever it is that's in front of you. Maybe it's a computer screen, maybe it's a phone, maybe it's something else. But notice as you allow your attention to fall back that there are many other things in the environment. And if you actually just stop for a minute and drop the labels, can you actually see separation? As I'm looking, is the screen actually separate from the shelves or the wall or the desktop or the book or the phone? Is it actually separate? Mine says it's separate. Mine has names for it. But even if I reach out and touch and I say, okay, that makes it separate, what I notice is that even in the touching, that whole movement isn't separate. It's continuous. So I just wait. Give myself permission to wait, to not have to know, to not have to have the answer, to not know what it is that anything's for other than the radiance dancing with itself. This apparently is how the radiance chooses to express itself. You know, I often imagine, especially when the judging mind comes in, how it would be different if they just did it this way. It would be different if they just behaved that way. Let me tell you what would happen if I lived in a war-torn country right now. Sudan, Gaza, Ukraine. Let me tell you what I'd do so differently. It's such imagination. Like, actually impossible. I mean, impossible. There's a saying growing up, people often say, you know, walk a mile in their shoes. But the truth is, I can never actually know what that is. I don't actually know what it means to walk a mile in another person's shoes. And it's not because I'm separate. It's because this is the expression exactly the way that it was intended to be. I have no idea if I would be a soldier if I were in a country that was filled with war. Mind likes to tell me no way. Rhoda would never be a soldier. A serial killer? Forget about it. That's not happening. But I have no idea. If this is actually just God godding, one of my favorite terms from Paul Hederman, then really, who is it that thinks they need to be control? As Ramesh says, who is it that's actually seeking? Like, why does all of this feel like constant judgment about how I can or can't get it right? How I can or how I keep getting it wrong? And the why is right there in plain view. It's right there in plain view. It's called an ego mind. And it likes to think about a lot of things because that's its job. Its job is to think and to label and to problem solve and to make problems and then solve the problems and then create more problems that it can then again solve some more. It's a big old circle. That's what it does. So what if I wait? Just wait. And allow the emptiness to bring the action forward, to bring the speaking forward. And I absolutely, unequivocally trust that. Let ego mind go. Let it go. Let it think. Let it spin. Let it do what it does. But wait. give myself permission to just wait. Joan writes, when we look very carefully, we find no me at the helm. Our next thought, our next urge, our next desire, our next experience, our next emotion, our next carefully considered move, our next action all emerge unbidden. One of my favorite ways of noticing this is all of the times I have in the corporate world before I came to Awakening Together. Not to say that I don't get to set budgets here and, imagine this is what it might look like, but I remember taking it so seriously in the corporate world. What are your sales going to be? What are your projections? Who are you going to get it from? And where is it going to come from? And then whether you met them or didn't met them or exceeded them or didn't exceed them, why didn't you get there? Or why did you get there? How did you get there? How do you make sure that you do it again? And I remember, just this one time in particular, I worked for a very long time with a small research supplier, and, a small company, 15 million was a really good year, was a really small company. And so one year, it was just after 2008 when the economy had crashed. And I was coaching at the time, just doing coaching for that company. And the owner came to me and said, we really need a salesperson, and I need you to be it. And it was pretty clear to me that that's what was going to happen. Like, that's what I was doing next. And at some point, it was literally a day away from them deciding whether or not they were going to close the company. And the owner was really into numerology. And she had her numbers read and then had gone to a psychic and had been told that something like, some, $2 million plus sale was going to come in, and, everything was going to be fine. And it was going to happen on July 1st. It just so happened that year I closed a $2.5 million sale on July 1st. So there was all this claiming, I did it. Rhoda did it. Somehow Rhoda did it. The numerology and the psychic predicted it. And all of this came together, all the cause and effect, all the evidence was there. And all I could see at that point was, I had no idea how this happened. I literally had no idea how this happened. The series of events was so incredulous. We hadn't been awarded the project, and then the company who had been awarded the project, the lead person quit, and then the people at Coke decided they didn't want to work with them because the lead person quit, and we were the second people in line, and suddenly the project was ours. Who knows how it happened? It was the biggest, oh my God, you really don't know how anything happened. You really don't know. And, they want to label it and say, this is yours and you did it. And, oh, look, she did it. And, and then, fast forward many years later when the sales weren't coming in and, nothing I did seemed to work and nothing ever, and still she did it and that's her fault. And how come it didn't work? And all I could see every single time was, I have no idea how any of this is happening. I have no idea how any of this is happening. Fast forward all the way to Awakening Together. Mind has a story about how it is that Rhoda somehow landed in a job at Awakening Together. But the truth is, I have no idea. How did I even end up at Awakening Together? Did I actually do it? If any of you look at your own personal experience, did Meg actually manifest a sailboat out of midair? Did Mary somehow suddenly appear here? Did Billy somehow show up suddenly? Did Jacqueline and Marisol and Sean? I mean, did this all just, how did it happen? What if it just happened? Oh my God, it's 11:20. Okay. So here's my attempt to put a bow on this. Let's give it a shot here. This one paragraph from Peter Brown. You're always dancing with radiance. This is something that I was guided to remember. You're always dancing with radiance. Worship or emotional, devotional engagement is one flavor of dancing with the energy of presence. Reading or going into some kind of mental world or mental application is another way of dancing with the energy. Cooking is another way. Body movement, such as doing Tai Chi or exercising or making love or anything whatsoever that you do, is nothing other than dancing with radiant presence. It's all radiant presence dancing with itself. So can we just wait? Wait and allow ourselves to be moved. So as we contemplate this particular teaching, see if there's anything that inner wisdom is beckoning for you to know. I'm going to ask that Marisol play our next song, which may actually be just for the fun of playing a good song. But also the way that inner wisdom translated this for me was to trust that being radioactive is dissolving the belief in the ego and the ego's habits, and to trust that that is awakening. So our next song is Imagine Dragons, and it's called Radioactive. All right. I'm waking up, baby. I feel it in my bones. Yes, I do. All right. Before we open the mic for sharing, I just want to say that it is just always such a pleasure to be with you all. And as we continue to nurture this community and deepen our connections, we ask for your support through donations. Your contributions sustain the community, sustain this sacred space. It provides resources for services. It supports our outreach efforts and touches lives beyond this gathering. So if you feel called to donate, Marisol has placed a link in the chat. You can also use the QR code if you're in gallery mode. That'll take you right to the website. And if you don't have either of those, you can go to awakening-together.org and select donate on the main menu bar. And we have a few minutes. If anyone is feeling called to take the mic and teach themselves anything, feel free to do that. Melanie.
Yeah, I just loved everything you said. And the idea of always dancing with radiance is making me think now that when one is experiencing pain, it's like I'm thinking about questioning it. When one is experiencing pain, they're dancing with radiance. And I find that an interesting concept that I'll be thinking about. And I used to always connect waiting with kind of being still. But if I'm always dancing, Mm. That's another concept I'm trying to now think about, that I can be dancing as I'm waiting for the answer. So that's interesting to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie. Gorgeous contemplation. Thank you. Well, I would just love to play Happy Shiny People just for the fun of playing Happy Shiny People. Happy Shiny People by REM is our next song. So Marisol, if you would play that for us. Love you all. Weekly fellowship time is next. Giving it back to Marisol. See you soon.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.